All right, everyone, how's it going? Just give us a couple more minutes. We will just let some stragglers come in, so we'll start in an extra minute or so, um, and then we'll go from there. So sit tight. All right, everyone, while we wait for just one more minute, why don't you type into the group chat your name and where you are located today? I'm over in New York. Lots of people. A lot of California. A lot of New York too. Fellow New Yorkers. Hello. Texas, Argentina, Alberta. Oh, Belize. Fun. Three. Okay, everyone. Well, thanks everyone for joining on today's webinar about travel insurance. Um, my name is Matt Kepnes, aka Nomadic Matt. Which you know because you probably found out through my email or social media about this. But if somebody sent you the link and you have no idea, welcome. We host educational webinars to help people travel on a budget. One of the ones we are doing is on travel insurance. It's always a topic that we get lots and lots and lots of questions about. We had like 600 signups. We don't expect everyone to attend. People just sign up for the recording. But thank you for taking the time out of your day and physically being here. This presentation will last an hour. It's going to be run by Megan and Megan from Insure My Trip. Insure My Trip is a company we mention a lot on the website. They are a good aggregator and search tool for travel insurance. So you can find the specific plan that meets your needs. So we've been affiliated with them for a long time. This is their second presentation. They did one earlier this year. So we're excited to have them back to talk more about travel insurance, as well as time to answer your questions. Sam, who I don't know where she is in your screen, but Sam, she's co-host. She is one of my employees. It helps us edit and research content so we can stay up to date. She's going to be here throughout the hour, and will be moderating and troubleshooting questions and tech stuff. If you have a question, definitely stay. The presentation will last no more than 40 minutes, and then there'll be 20 minutes for Q&A. One thing I will say for the Q&A, Megan and Megan cannot give you specific help on a policy. So if you're like, I have this policy, can you answer my specific question about my specific policy? Can't do that. But if you want to have general questions about insurance itself, or totally fine. But if you're like, I bought this policy from company Y and it says this, it's not part of their well, maybe expertise, but legally just can't talk about that stuff. So so keep your questions pretty general for that. And so that's really it. For anyone else, thank you for being here. I'm going to mute myself because you're not here to listen to me talk, and turn it over to Megan. And then the presentation should appear on your screen.
Thanks, Matt. I am Megan Kayada. I am the public relations specialist for Insure My Trip. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years. I knew nothing about travel insurance before I started, so I hope to pass along some of my knowledge to you all regards to travel insurance. My background is in TV news. I was a news producer, so definitely new for me when I first started learning about travel insurance. But I have to say, since working here, I will always consider travel insurance whenever I travel for a number of reasons, which we'll get into. Somebody who knows everything there is to know about travel insurance is Megan Walsh. She's our director of product. Megan, why don't you say a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Megan. And we're making this easy on you today. You only have to remember one name. Uh, so I've been with Insure My Trip for over 13 years now. I'm the director of insurance product, and I work with a team of insurance product analysts. And we're responsible for looking at all of the insurance policies and building what you see on our site. And getting the best policies out there. So as Megan said, when I joined the company 13 years ago, I too knew nothing about travel insurance, but I started in customer care. I learned a ton about what travel insurance is, and have worked up through the product department now. And our team, again, we work with all the travel insurance plans, and we try to make them easy to understand and easy to purchase. And as Megan also said, I do typically consider travel insurance when I'm traveling, even if it's just domestic travel. There's so many things that can happen during a trip, and it's always a good thing to consider.
Thanks, Megan. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the presentation. So we've talked about ourselves. So let's talk about the company we work for, which Matt kind of spoke a little to. Insure My Trip is a travel insurance comparison site, we like to say. We have offices here in the US and in Canada now. So we're international. We're located in Rhode Island right now, our main offices, but we have offices in Canada as well. And like we said, we provide travelers with options for travel insurance of providers and of policies. So you have the choice, you get to pick and choose what policy, what coverages work for you and for your trip specifically. So, we like to point out that comparison is key. Comparison for anything when you're shopping is important to make sure you're getting the best deal, but also to make sure that you are getting the coverage that you need for your trip. And we like to say, airlines, cruise lines, booking sites, they all offer trip protection generally, but you might find that they don't cover what you think they're going to cover, and you'll find more robust coverage under a third party like Insure My Trip. We're going to dig deep into that in just a minute as well. But before we get any further, let's talk about what travel insurance is. Specifically for me, it's hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You never know what's going to happen on a trip, like Megan said. So there could be flight cancellations, you could lose your luggage, get sick, injuries. So it's kind of one of those situations where have a backup plan, and the backup plan is travel insurance. Megan, how would you describe travel insurance, being the expert?
So I think one thing to keep in mind is that travel insurance is designed to cover unforeseen issues. So an unforeseen illness, unforeseen delays that can happen during your trip. So we know that, airlines may offer certain I don't want to say coverage, but they may offer certain things. If a flight is delayed, they can help you rebook another flight. But they're not required to do that. So there's many things that can happen during the trip that could cause you to have to spend additional money that you weren't planning to. And travel insurance can help to reimburse you for those issues.
It's very important, again, having that backup plan, just in case, you never know. I'm going backwards here. So today we're going to be speaking generally, like Matt said, about travel insurance, not to get into too many specifics, but we're going to be covering a number of topics. Something we like to call don't check the box, as Megan said. Airlines offer coverage, cruise lines offer coverage, booking sites, credit cards might be offering trip protection coverage. But we like to say beware or be cautious of convenience, because they may not cover what you think they do, or you might not be covered in certain incidents or be covered as much as you would like to be. We're also going to be talking about cost of travel insurance, because I know that's a big one. People are spending more on travel. They may not want to spend the extra money for a travel insurance policy, but it's surprisingly affordable, which we'll get into. Also, travel insurance for seniors. We know that our needs and wants and trips change as we age and our loved ones age. So we're going to kind of get into that and what is important for coverage as we age. And also cancel for any reason, which is a big one. It became really popular since the pandemic when people were wanting to cancel for fear of travel. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that. We're going to start with don't check the box. That's something we'd like. Big exclamation point. Be careful. This refers to, like I said, the box that pops up at the end of when you're booking your cruise or your airline or on a booking site. It says, do you want to add trip protection to this? We like to say, again, it's not going to be as robust as you might want it to be. So while it's convenient, you have to know what is covered. So you have to make sure that you do your research and know exactly what is being offered through these deals. And for example, Insure My Trip did some research for you, so that's helpful. We compared common carriers and booking site travel insurance to Insure My Trip travel insurance, and findings were interesting. Megan, when you talk about that when it comes to cruise trip protection.
Yeah, so as Megan mentioned, we did evaluate several of the major cruise lines and what they are offering. And a lot of it is just general travel insurance, but there are some things that either are not included that you would find in a third party policy. And their forms of reimbursement may be different. So for example, many of the policies do not cover pre-existing conditions. So if you have something that existed prior to your booking or purchase of the policy, there may not be coverage if that illness were to reoccur during the trip or even before. With some, they may offer some kind of flavor of cancel for any reason, but typically there are going to be some requirements around that. And also, they're typically not going to reimburse you in cash. It's going to be a voucher for the cruise or whatever travel it is. Typically, there's no financial default coverage. So if the cruise line or tour operator were to go bankrupt, it's not typically going to cover that. Also, it doesn't cover the entire trip. So it's usually just a portion. So maybe the cruise portion or tour portion. And usually there will be inconvenience benefits as well, which can be helpful when covered by a third party insurance policy, because if something that is covered goes wrong, it may just be a payment made to directly to you. So those are some of the big items that we took a look at and listed the differences on our site.
Right. So a lot of downfalls there. So kind of getting into it a little bit more, Megan, what are some of the things in a third party policy like Insure My Trip? What would they cover that you might not even think about when it comes to a booking site or something like that covering?
Right. That's a really great question. And you could be looking at a more robust list of covered reasons for canceling or interrupting your trip and being able to get your money back. Typically, you're going to be covering the entire duration of your trip with a third party policy. So from when you leave home until you return back home. So you're not just looking at potential reimbursement for a portion of the trip, it would be the entire thing. Um, Coverage for pre-existing conditions can be available for yourself. Also, if there is a immediate family member at home that you're concerned about that has pre-existing conditions, there, may be coverage there on a third-party policy. And then, the big one we talk about now is cancel for any reason. Typically, that is going to reimburse you in cash versus, a cruise policy that may only offer a voucher.
Right. So it's, again, that people, I think that's a big one for people who, when they book through a cruise line or airline, they're talking about getting reimbursement and it's a voucher. So it gets frustrating sometimes. And also we like to tell people who fly assume that the airline is going to cover you. Say there's a delay or a cancellation, and they think that the airline is going to make them whole and reimburse them or whatever it may be. However, it's not, there's no federal law requiring airlines to reimburse or give you some kind of compensation. So it's airline by airline. And while many do offer you something, maybe a voucher or something like that, they're not required to. So Megan, if a flight is delayed and you have travel insurance, how will that provide a reimbursement or help you out?
Yeah, great question. So if a flight is delayed for a covered reason, usually it's a weather delay, a mechanical delay, something like that. And it's delayed for the required number of hours. So that may differ by policy. It can provide you with reimbursement for additional costs that you may have to put out for meals, accommodations. Flights delayed, you have to stay overnight. So it can help to cover additional expenses you may face in those situations.
Right. And it's important to point out too, it's important to have extra cash on you when you're traveling, because while travel insurance can make you whole if you do file a claim, it's a reimbursement. It's not, they're not going to give you cash while you're being delayed. So that's kind of an important little note there. Same goes for travel insurance through or trip protection through an airline. If again, that box pops up and you're asked if you want to get coverage, it's kind of like the same thing as what cruise lines. They're not offering as much or robust of protection there. Also, a lot of travel credit cards will offer travel insurance benefits or trip protection benefits free of charge. But again, Insure My Trip looked into 100 different personal credit cards that offer trip protection in their policies. And like cruise insurance, there was a lot that was lacking. Megan, what are some of the things that were lacking there?
Sure. So when we looked and compared many of the different credit cards, the coverage that they're offering, we found that it may not be as robust as the third-party travel insurance. So reasons for cancellation may be fewer on these plans. Also, emergency medical coverage while you're traveling, few may offer that coverage. And if they do, it may be very low. So one thing we like to point out, if you're traveling, know what your domestic health coverage will cover where you're going. We know that most will not cover overseas, especially Medicare. So it's important to know if you are potentially looking to use coverage through your credit card, what it covers, and also do some research with a third-party travel insurance, because you may find something that is reasonably priced that can give you the coverage you need.
Yeah, we like to say that, you may find and you'll likely find more coverage and more robust coverage at a cheaper price than you would through an airline or a cruise line or anything like that. And if you do have more questions about what credit card trip protection versus third party, or even cruise trip protection versus third party, we have education sites or pages on our website. You can just search credit cards or cruise line insurance on insuremytrip.com, and you can see the comparison of the two with cards and with different cruise lines that we looked into for that. So just a little heads up if you need some more info. Also, now let's talk about dollars and cents. Ooh, this thing is just acting up on me. So like we said, we're giving you a general overview of travel insurance. So we can't tell you specifically what a travel insurance policy will cost because it's not one size fits all. It's customizable. There are different factors that go into how much a travel insurance policy will cost. Generally, we like to say it will cost 4 to 10% of your total prepaid non-refundable trip costs. But like I said, there are different factors that go into how much a policy will cost. What are some of those, Megan?
Yeah, so a big one is going to be just the cost of your trip. Obviously, if you're covering the cost in the event of a cancellation or interruption, that's going to be a big factor. So the more expensive the trip, most likely the more expensive the policy is going to be. Also, just the levels of coverage. We do have plans that can be looked at as like a low, mid, high. So you may find that a plan with lower coverages may suit your needs, or you may want to look at something that offers higher limits as well. Age is going to be a factor with this. So typically, the older the traveler, the more expensive the insurance policy is going to be. But it's again several factors that are going into this. Also, length of travel. Some plans, as you take longer trips, they might become more expensive. And then just adding on certain coverage types as well, as listed here: cancel for any reason, rental car collision, other special options as well can increase the cost. But it's always good to do some research. You can come to a site such as Insure My Trip, plug in all your information, and you'll see what plans are available and what might fit your budget.
Right, and you'll get the side-by-side comparison of how much something will cost on our website. So you can customize it and pick what is important to you in your trip. If cancel for any reason isn't something that you think you want to use, and you don't need to use it. So you can cover more medically, cover less, whatever it is. So we like to say you can find a travel insurance policy in your budget for your needs, for any budget, really. And it's important to point out, Megan, too, that you won't find a policy cheaper somewhere else. So can you explain why that is?
Yeah, that's a great point. The policies that we offer through Insure My Trip, if you go directly to the insurance provider, the same plan will be the same price. The prices are regulated by the insurance commission of every state. The rates are filed. So it's not something, that you're going to find on our site at one price and potentially find somewhere for a different price.
Which is key, because I know it can be frustrating going from site to site to make sure you have the best price and the most coverage that you can possibly have. Let's talk about seniors and travel insurance. As Megan mentioned, as you age, travel insurance policies may likely go up in price. So we're going to dig a little bit more into that. First, I do want to mention that while it may become more important as you age to get travel insurance is beneficial for real. It's, like Megan said, if you're traveling out of the country, your travel insurance, your health insurance company will likely not cover your medical bills overseas. So it becomes important at any age. But we do know that travel insurance for seniors is most popular. So we're going to dig a little bit into that. What advice, Megan, would you give for seniors looking to find the right policy for coverages?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I'd probably say, look at the medical limits that are available. We have some plans that may offer lower limits in the $15,000 to $20,000 range, all the way up to $250,000 to $500,000. So really, it's going to be, what are you most comfortable with? in, what you're going to be doing. If you're traveling domestically, you may not have to, get as high as an amount as you would if you're going internationally. So, a lot of decisions made there, and also just know what your domestic health insurance may cover. But it's good to know what the policy will cover. As we mentioned before, unforeseen illness or injury. Also, if there are concerns with a close family member at home, there may be some policies that could cover you if their condition were to worsen prior to or during the trip. And then also pre-existing conditions. Um, it can be anything from, something that happened prior to you purchasing the policy. If there was even a change in your medication, even if the condition is stable, it could be considered pre-existing. So with that, it's important to look at plans that may offer what they call a pre-existing condition waiver. There are certain requirements to be eligible for that. Usually having to insure the trip within 2 to 3 weeks after making your initial payment or deposit towards your trip. You have to be fit to travel as of when you're purchasing the policy. But that can give you coverage for things that insurance company would consider pre-existing.
Right. Kind of an important one. And as we look at comparison between credit cards and for airlines and stuff like that, they usually will not cover pre-existing conditions. So this is a great option for really anybody who has a pre-existing condition, but we know as we age, we tend to have some more of these issues that pop up. So it can be important coverage to add to your policy if it's available, of course. Now we're going to get into cancel for any reason. This is a big one too, really, for anybody, seniors, anybody of age that may be traveling and are concerned that they may need to cancel for something other than a covered reason. So we're going to get a little bit more into that. So if you do cancel, this gives you the flexibility to cancel for any reason, as the name says, and you can be reimbursed 50 to 75% of your prepaid non-refundable trip costs if you qualify, but not every policy and traveler qualifies for cancel for any reason, or CFAR as we like to call it. So what are some of the eligibility requirements, Megan, for this coverage?
Great question. So it is time sensitive. So as with the pre-existing condition waiver, you typically have to be purchasing the policy within 2 to 3 weeks after making your initial payment or deposit towards your trip. You have to be insuring the full prepaid non-refundable cost of the trip. And you must, if to use the coverage, you must be canceling your trip at least 48 hours prior to departure. So to be able to cancel for any reason, you have to be canceling your trip at least 2 days prior to your departure. If you're, say, within 1 day of departure, unfortunately, this would not be available. But this does give you a lot of flexibility. And the policies, they will have general trip cancellation coverage, which is a covered list of reasons that you can cancel the trip. But as Megan had mentioned earlier, we saw this a lot during the pandemic where, you may book a trip and suddenly it becomes a hot spot and you're just, I don't want to travel there. I don't want to risk it. Well, unfortunately, fear of travel is not a covered reason. So in cases like that, that's where cancel for any reason would come into play. And reimbursement is typically, depending on the plan, anywhere from 50 to 75% of your prepaid non-refundable trip cost.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where you're thinking, that's not great. You're only get 50% back. But if you don't have cancel for any reason and you do need to cancel for something that is not covered, you're going to be out of all of that money, all of the prepaid non-refundable trip costs that you already put towards it. And like everything else, obviously adding CFAR is going to up the price of a travel insurance policy. Can you talk about that a little bit, Megan? How much that will cost to cancel for any reason?
Yeah, so typically it can increase the base cost of the plan by about 50%. So it is an additional cost to add on, but depending on what your concerns are, if you do want the flexibility to be able to just say, you know what, I changed my mind, I don't want to go, then this might be the right coverage for you.
Right. So it's again, it's you have to check and see what is covered and what isn't, and if this is a good option for you. So like wraps up our main presentation and just some takeaways here that we just kind of want to highlight. We're big into comparison shop. You can do that very easily on insuremytrip.com. But if you think that an airline offers enough for your trip, we suggest that you kind of look into and see what is actually covered through those, and just do your homework, get all the information you can from everything. And again, don't check the box. We're not saying that checking the box is bad all the time. That's not, it just wants you to be aware that you may not be covered for what you think you're being covered for. So again, that goes back to doing your homework on that. And travel insurance for seniors may become more important. And there are some things that you may need to know that are a little bit different, like I said, with a pre-existing condition and, all of that stuff. So again, I think that the main takeaway today is do your homework, right? Look into everything, make sure you understand it. And the great thing with Insure My Trip is we employ licensed travel insurance agents. So they are well aware of what is in every policy. They can walk you through it, give you advice, let you know what is and is not covered, answer all the questions that you need. There's a chat option on our website. There's an email. We have a phone number. And another great kind of takeaway from Insure My Trip is all customers have access to our anytime advocates. This will be important. You don't file a claim through Insure My Trip. We don't deal with claims, but if you file a claim with the provider and you are denied or it's taking a long time, you can contact our anytime advocates and they can look into it for you. They can see why it was denied or what's taking so long. Maybe the paperwork wasn't put in properly. So really, they're there to save you time and money. If you are denied, we can go back to them and say, why was it denied, and appeal, and hopefully get them to file the claim the way that you believe it should be filed. So it's kind of a great, I don't want to say it, just a great benefit to save you time and money there. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else, Megan, that we wanted to mention specifically? I think that was good.
Yeah, I think that covers the main points.
All right, so I think we have time for questions. Yeah, perfect.
All right, great. Thank you so much, guys. That was so great. The chat has been popping off this entire time. So everyone has a lot of questions, as you know, because you do these all the time. So I've kind of like compiled everyone's questions into some general categories. And I'm sorry if anything is covering something you already went over. I was like fully in the chat. So if I missed something that you already mentioned, but I guess that means that it's something that maybe needs to be clarified or something like that. So thanks again. And I'm just going to dive right in here. I'm glad we have a lot of time because we definitely do have like a good amount. All right. And guys, feel free. You can keep asking questions in the chat. I'm not sure we will be able to get to everyone because we're going to keep it to the hour. But I'll try to monitor as they're answering. So we'll just go as it goes. All right. So there was a lot of questions about airlines in specific. So I had like a lot on airlines, medical. You've covered senior demographic pretty well, so I probably won't go into that. But just for medical, and I know you can't talk on like specific policies, but would you be able to share like kind of like generally the range of policies that are on Insure My Trip? Like for example, like people are asking someone's asking like they're looking for like repatriation medevac, like basically if something goes direly wrong, but they don't necessarily feel that they need a travel insurance policy that covers maybe a canceled flight. They just want to pay for like a severe injury or something like that. Is that a policy that they'd be able to find, or how would that work?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And there may be a couple of options. From what we offer on our site, if you're traveling abroad, there are travel medical plans, which focus mainly around emergency medical coverage and emergency medical evacuation. So also there may be just straight medical evacuation memberships available, which focus specifically on that. So if we're looking at the memberships, typically you have to be hospitalized during your trip. I want to say it's more than about, I think, 150 miles from your home. And those memberships can get you to either the nearest appropriate hospital. Some may give you the choice of where you want to be brought. If you're looking at travel medical policies, if you're traveling abroad and want both emergency medical and evacuation, typically those are going to, if we're looking at the evacuation portion of things, are going to get you to the nearest appropriate hospital. So if you're brought somewhere initially and they can't treat you properly, this can help to get you to a hospital that can give you the care that you need.
And that becomes important
So
depending on where you travel to. So if you're traveling to a place that isn't known for their medical care, this evacuation can be really important.
Correct.
yeah, I
And
just saw someone asking like what the cost of medical evacuation is, but like, or body repatriation. I mean, I'm like assuming that just varies so greatly depending on where you're going and maybe where you're from.
yeah, so we don't handle the evacuations and stuff like that. That's done directly through the emergency assistance provider used by the insurance company. But we know, it could range from a few $1,000s to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So yeah, there's a big range there.
Yeah, thank you. And kind of keeping on the medical portion of things, I know you guys covered pre-existing conditions, but maybe would you mind talking a little bit more about that again? Because people are asking like a few more questions about that I don't like fully understand the question, but I feel like maybe if you could just kind of clarify how that works again, just to make sure people understand. Like it seems like people will need to really look into the nitty-gritty of the policy. So I'm not really sure if that's a question you could even answer about pre-existings.
Yeah, so typically a pre-existing condition is defined as something that existed uh, usually in the 60 to 180 day period prior to you purchasing your policy. That can be anything that a condition that required a change in medication, something that you may have had to see a doctor about. Any change in that condition within that time period prior to you purchasing the policy. So, although a condition may be stable, if they increased or decreased your prescription, that may, in the eyes of the insurance company, make it become a pre-existing condition. So with that, some plans do offer what we call a pre-existing condition waiver. And if you're purchasing within that 2 to 3 week period prior to, 2 to 3 weeks after making your initial payment towards the trip, that can waive the look back period into your medical records and essentially give coverage for a condition that previously would have been considered pre-existing. And I know it's a lot to understand. We do go into this into our site. there's different what we call learn articles and information there that may be helpful to take a look at to help understand this better. And as Megan mentioned, we also do have our team of licensed customer care agents, and they're, trained to go through all of this. If you have any specific questions, if, you are a close family member that isn't traveling, if there's concerns there, they're happy to answer your questions about that.
That's a great reminder because, yeah, as people are going, a lot of people are having those very specific questions that it would definitely be better to talk on an individual basis. So just a reminder to everyone, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, on the medical still, and then I'll go on to the next one, which is airfare, which a lot of people have questions on, but a few people kind of asked about if they're, say, nomadic and they're not going on a specific trip, are there policies that kind of more replace like your health insurance? Like, is that a thing that is available that they could look into and get, as like say, and also say they're on an open-ended trip, they don't know when they're going to come back. Is that a policy that would be available?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do offer annual multi-trip emergency medical plans if you're traveling abroad. But typically those will only cover you for a certain amount of time per trip. You'd have to be coming, I guess, home in between. So, if it's something where you're just continually traveling, there may be some policies that could cover, but typically what we look at is more on a per trip basis.
Gotcha. Okay, I think that kind of covers all the medical questions. I want to get into airlines because a lot of people I know are concerned about, especially now that there's delays and cancellations are just seemingly so much more common. I know I've experienced that over the past year. So first of all, I want to add something that a few people asked, which was, what if you're booking your flights with points and miles? I know I always do too. So how does travel insurance enter into that? How would that be related? I know what I've done personally is a lot of times you will be able to get those points back. So there's really no need to get the travel insurance involved at all. But if that is the case where they didn't get them back or whatever, is that a thing that's even dealt with by travel insurance companies?
So typically they're not going to cover the value of the points or miles, but what you can cover is the fees or taxes that you might have to pay out of pocket to use the points. Typically those are covered. Some plans may also have certain benefits that can cover sort of the rebanking fee, if there's something like that, to rebank the points if you have to cancel the trip. So there are certain coverages, but they're not going to cover the actual value of the points being used.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, to the people who asked that question, I travel mostly on points and miles, and I've never found it to be an issue because they'll just reimburse you, and that's the main thing that people are worried about. Yeah, I'm actually doing a webinar on points and miles next week, so you guys can join that if anyone is interested. But yeah, okay. So what about people? Okay, let me see. Kind of on a cancel for any reason, sorry if these are a little bit all over the place. I'm trying to still consolidate, but if people have, say you purchased an airline ticket or whatever part of your trip, can you still get travel insurance for cancel for any reason? Or does it have to be, and I think you may have covered that when you were talking about cancel for any reason, but just to reiterate, are they able to add on stuff, or is it that you have to purchase, what's the order of things for cancel for any reason coverage?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So, say because you have to book the plan or purchase the plan within 10 to 21 days after making your initial payment, you can purchase the plan, cover the amount that you have paid towards the trip so far. And as you add subsequent items to it, you can then call in to our customer care team to say, I just made this payment. I need to add this to my the cost of my trip that I'm covering. And our team will work directly with the customer to get that added onto their plan. Obviously, as the trip cost increases, the cost of the policy is going to increase as well. But one thing to note, if you have the pre-existing condition waiver, or if you have canceled for any reason on the policy, you want to make sure that you're adding the coverage, the additional trip cost within the time period required to be able to keep those coverages on the policy. So that's a really great point, because it is important to remember, if you are increasing the cost of your policy, increasing the cost of your trip, you want to call right away after making that payment and add it to the policy.
It's also important to note that you have cancel for any reason is an add-on benefit. It's not a standalone benefit that you can just purchase on its own. It's added on to a policy that you already have. So again, it's not something where there are travel medical plans that you can just get for travel medical that doesn't exist for cancel for any reason right now.
That's a great point, because I saw people were asking about that too. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Let's see here. Okay, while we're kind of talking about airlines and all the logistics, could you talk a little bit maybe about, there's a few questions about what to do, say if the flight is delayed, say if there's a medical emergency, like what do they need, what kind of documentation in general do people need to be able to submit? What's the timeline? I assume immediately, or is it before they get is it before they go to a hospital if they need to? I know this probably varies per the circumstances, but maybe you guys could talk a little bit more about the claims process, like what is stuff that people should be prepared to submit. I am always just on the mindset of like, take pictures of everything and submit everything, but if you guys could talk a little bit more about that, it'd be great.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, so I think if we're talking about, say, a baggage claim, it's always a great idea to take pictures of your luggage, what you've packed and brought with you, just as proof of what you had. So that if there is your bags are lost or stolen, a police report may be necessary. Also, proof from the airline that your bags were lost or damaged by them, that may be required. We're talking about flight delays. If there is something that you can get from the airline verifying the delay and the cause of the delay, that can be helpful. Any receipts. So if you do have to purchase an additional meal, or if you do have to stay overnight somewhere, it's important to have copies of the receipts to prove what you had to pay out. If we're looking at emergency medical coverage while you're on a trip, in that case, it may be helpful to contact the emergency assistance number that comes with every plan. They're all going to have their own emergency assistance teams, and they can help you to find, say, the nearest hospital that can give the care that you need. Also, if it is something serious, they may be able to arrange payment to the hospital directly if something is needed to secure your admittance there. So, and if you do have to go to a hospital doctor while you're on your trip, it's very, very, very important to get any paperwork from the doctor or hospital while you're on the trip. Because we've heard so many situations where somebody tries to get it after the fact, and sometimes it can be nearly impossible if, say, it was, a foreign country. So yeah, you just want records of, what happened, and typically the insurance company will walk you through what is needed for a claim.
We like to say there are
Great.
things before, during, and after a trip. Before, check with your provider and your policy to see what the requirements are if you do need to file a claim. So that way you're aware while you're on the trip. Keep all your receipts, all your documentation, anything, just anything and everything. And when you get home and you are filing a claim, make sure you're doing it in a timely fashion, because some may have cutoff times and dates. And if you are denied for any reason, that's when you can contact our anytime advocates who can help you to figure out why it was denied and if that can be eradicated.
Right. Thank you. I know it can feel overwhelming to like submit things when you're, dealing with something that went wrong on the road. I've certainly had to make claims, and it can, but yeah, as long as you have the right documentation, it should be good. A few people now are kind of asking about like location. This is kind of just a quick one. Like a few Canadians out there. Hey, I'm not Canadian. Sorry, I live next to the border. That's why it's like, but anyway, do you guys cover Canadians, or like I saw there's some from New Zealand. Someone else was asking about limitations on policies. I know I've experienced like certain policies they won't sell to New York State residents. I guess it depends on the policy, but are you guys US based only, or how does that work?
So great question. And I think this is a good opportunity to also mention our Canadian website. So it's insuremytrip.ca. We just launched this last year, and we're excited to be offering products from several different providers. We're adding new products all the time there. So, but it's emergency medical, all-inclusive plans, trip cancellation and interruption. So yes, we do offer, a wide product set to Canadian residents, and also for coverage for visitors to Canada. So, if you have family visiting from outside of the country coming into Canada, we do offer coverage for that as well. So yeah, it's definitely something we're continuing to build and super excited about.
Awesome. Well, that worked out great that people are asking about it. So that's great.
Sure.
Okay. Also about purchasing policies, few people asked about who is covered. Like, say it's a couple traveling, do you have to purchase individual policies? What if they're travel companions, like friends that are traveling together? What if some person bought the flights and the other person paid them back and they want to be covered? How do those things work, or is it just always on an individual basis?
So I think there's a few different ways that can work. So, say you're a couple traveling together, as long as you reside in the same state, you can typically both be on the same policy. Some may require that you live in the same household, but that's typically not the norm. It's just as long as you're in the same state. And the reasoning behind that is every state has their own insurance rules. So you'll notice that many of the providers on our site, if you quote, say, I'm from Rhode Island, I have a friend that's traveling with me, they're from Massachusetts. There may be a different insurance policy for each of us. So we would want to insure ourselves on different policies. But if you're typically from the same state, you can be on the same policy.
Okay, great. Now some people are asking some more like follow-ups on the location question. What about people who are visiting the US from outside the US but not Canadian? Like, what's your, I guess maybe it's just US and Canada, like citizens coverage right now. Is that true, or?
So we do have some emergency medical plans that are available to travelers from other countries that are traveling outside of their home country. So whether that be from, one country to another country or from an outside country to the United States, there may be some emergency medical plans that can offer coverage there.
Okay, great, great. I think we're wrapping up to the end of the questions that were like more general. I know there was a bunch of people that had kind of more specific questions. And again, like definitely reach out to their anytime advocates. Is that right? Is that okay?
Yeah, we
And
have
and
the anytime advocates are for claims. We have our licensed customer care
oh,
agents
okay.
who are super
Thank
helpful.
you.
I've had to use them, so I know they're very helpful.
Awesome. Is that available like on a chat, or is it like you call, or both?
Everything, email, there's a chat on our website that you can get into, and there's also available through phone. So all of the things.
Okay, great. Let me see. One last question. Let's see. Well, we did have okay, coverage for this one might be a good one to end on. Coverage for like unforeseen world events. I mean, there's always something going on, and as we all know from the pandemic, things can change drastically. What kind of coverage should people be looking for if they want to make sure they're covered for that? And is that something that is typically offered? Is that an add-on, like cancel for any reason?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think it really depends on what the event is. All of the plans will have a list of covered reasons. So, illness, injury, um, weather events, stuff like that. Obviously, there's a lot more, but I think it really depends. We can't predict what's going to happen. Like, I don't think anyone predicted that we'd be in a global pandemic a few years ago. So in those events, as we don't know what the future is going to bring, that's where cancel for any reason can be helpful. If it is something that happens that may not be covered, if you have cancel for any reason, it pretty much gives you the option to say, I don't feel comfortable, I don't want to take this trip, and at least you can get the majority of your money back versus being out everything potentially. So yeah, it's tough to give a specific answer on that one, but if there's anything specific, again, our customer care agents are happy to answer questions.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, this is perfect. We're right on time. Yeah, again, thanks everyone for coming. I have saved the transcript, and I know a lot of people are asking about that. So I know because we had so many great questions and answers. So we'll send that out along with the recording and the presentation. Give us about a week. I know we always have like a flood of emails like the day after. People are very excited because there's so much information that's just shared, but we need to edit it and do our whole process. So we want to make sure we're getting you guys the best thing. So just give us a little bit and we'll get it to you. Don't worry. And yeah, did you guys want to say any last words before we sign out?
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for listening, and for those are great questions and all that. I think the most important takeaway is to do your homework and just know what is covered in your policy and make sure you understand it. We know travel insurance can be very confusing, or any insurance really. So just getting that extra help if you need it to make sure you fully understand what you're buying before you buy it and even after, and what you're covered for is kind of the takeaway here.
Yeah, and it's really great to see so many people here that are just eager to get out and travel. It shut down for so long, and it's great to see everybody getting back out there. So happy travels, everyone.
Yeah, indeed, I agree. All right, thanks again, everyone, for coming. And yeah, like I mentioned, our next webinar, I'll be hosting one myself on points and miles. So you can sign up for that. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Have a great afternoon or evening wherever you're going.
Bye. Thank you, guys.